When I came to college to be a music major, I already had a lot of information on how to play the instrument, and things were working pretty well for me already. And so I had a good start. But after a few months, I started to lose a lot of what I had already learned, and I started to lose sort of my fundamentals on the instrument. And so, just like most people when they have a problem, I started looking desperately for external help. And I was asking people questions and all this stuff, which is good. I completely encourage being curious and learning. But I was sort of trying to give that responsibility of my learning and my ability to play the instrument. I was trying to put it onto somebody else almost. And that's when it kind of became a little bit unhealthy. And so all the way through college until literally very recently, I didn't realize that me asking all these people for help, that's good. I should be getting help. But that wasn't the main solution I should be looking for. I have a lot of the answers already in my head, but I was kind of just trying to look for external help because, there was a certain amount of external help that got me to where I was in the first place. But the real growth was using that and sitting down on my own and being like, okay, how do I unpack this information just in my mind? Not, I mean, writing things down or like taking notes is good, but it's like, am I sitting there while I'm supposed to be practicing, really thinking, using what I already know? And the answer was not really. I was just trying to get somebody else to kind of just like, tell me exactly what to do. And that did not work, let me tell you. And so this is going to sound really weird, but what I did was before I practiced one day recently, I literally sat down, closed my eyes. You can try this with me, unless you're driving. Don't do this if you're driving. I closed my eyes and I kind of just thought. I just thought for a while. Not about anything random. What I did was I focused my attention on how can I make this practice session that I'm about to do. I asked myself this question: how can I make this practice session the best that it could possibly be? And so, I asked myself that question and I started, thinking about what I was going to eat for lunch. And I was like, no, 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 I'm thinking about this right now. And eventually, just putting my phone away, eventually all these thoughts kind of just flooded my brain with like past memories and past ideas and things like that, that I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much stuff that I know that I'm just not using in my daily practice. So chances are there's a lot of stuff that you already know. Your band director already said it. You already saw it on one of these like YouTube videos or shorts, whatever it is. You already know a lot of the informations. And, there's a good chance. Now, I think that you should be getting private lessons if you don't. I think that's really important. But, when you get the private lessons and you come back home, just maybe try this and close your eyes. It doesn't have to be for long, just until you have a good idea of what to do. I did it for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But you just close your eyes and you think, how could I possibly make this as good as humanly possible? That's a really good choice of words, Max. And you start getting all these like solutions. So if I were to do it right now, I'm like, okay, how can I get the best practice session right now? And the first things that come to mind is like, okay, I need to get like a good warm up, and I need to make sure that my tone is there, and I'm not using too much effort, and all these things. And I just start getting these ideas, and I'm like, okay. And then when I'm working on this section, what I need to do is I need to put the metronome super low, and then I'm just gonna sing through it and do my fingers, and I'm just gonna do this. And then once I can play it really well, nice and clean, then after that I'll turn it up 3 clicks, and then I'll do that all the way until it's at 150 instead of 70 beats per minute. And I'm like, oh my god, that's a terrible idea, but then I do it anyways because that's what my brain told me to do. I'm talking really fast. And then afterward, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the most I've gotten done in the past year of practicing this instrument. And all I did was before I practiced, this doesn't have to be for long. You can do it for 60 seconds. You close your eyes. You don't even have to close your eyes, but close your eyes and just be like, okay, ask yourself the question, how can I make this a good practice session? Okay, I'm getting answers. That's not too good. And then you're using your brain in a way that you probably don't use very often when you're actually practicing. You just go in there, wherever you're practicing, and you just kind of like pull out your instrument, and you're just like, okay. You're like, okay, I'm ready for the day. But it's like, what would happen if you just used some of your extra brain power beforehand and just kind of like mapped it out what you wanted to do? Now, I think it can be beneficial to even earlier to write down like, I'm going to practice this section, I'm going to practice this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do these fundamentals. I think that can be more useful, doing it beforehand, but maybe just right before you're like, how am I going to approach that? What's the best, how am I going to get the best outcome for today? And it's just one of those things that it doesn't take long at all. You're going to be saving tons of time anyways because you're not going to be noodling as much on your instrument, and you're just going to be focused like, okay, I've had good practice sessions before, so I asked myself the question, how to have a good one today. And I already know the answer, but chances are it's something that you don't really want to do. I don't want to sit there and sing through a passage, da 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 da. Like, I don't want to sit there and do that, but it's like, I already know in my head, like, well, that's how I had a good practice session before. So my point is, whatever that thing is for you that gives you the best results at the end of a practice session, why aren't you doing it every single time? Chances are you know what it is. You're just not thinking. So if you just put your phone away for a little bit, I know it's impossible, but you put your phone away for a little bit and you just kind of go, okay, that's what I need to do. You will be shocked at the difference in the outcome. Don't worry about the outcome yet, but you'll be shocked in what happens after the practice session. You're like, oh my gosh, that was super productive. And then you can do it again tomorrow. And so it's just a weird concept that you probably haven't heard before, where it's like, hey dude, just think for a second. It's weird, but you'd be surprised how much smarter you are than you think you are. Because those great players, the professionals and whatnot, the difference is that they know what to do. And they're not just in there noodling. I don't know if they're necessarily doing this where they really think, how can I make this as productive as possible? They might be, I'm not them yet, but I think that it's something that might really help you, especially if you're somebody who struggles to focus. You kind of just take that moment to narrow your focus inward, and you're like, oh, shoot, I was not ready for this practice session mentally at all. But, now that you take that little bit of time, maybe set a timer or something, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was much better than it probably would have been. So let me know how that goes. Please try this at least once. Literally 60 seconds. And maybe come back to this video and leave a comment and say, hey, dude, that was stupid. Or be like, hey, this is like, I don't know how I was not already doing this. Like, why was I not thinking right before I practiced? But if it helps, make sure you hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.